Hey guys, welcome back. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and click the bell for notifications. And we are back. Today, Deadbeat Chronicles, a place where raw truth, real stories, and transformative conversation collide. Today's episode is a powerful one. We're joined by Ellis, a dad-preneur, transformational speaker, singer-songwriter, life and business advisor, and the visionary behind the Empower Men movement. Aaron has dedicated his life to giving voice to fathers, sons, and men who've been pushed to the margins, helping them break silence, heal from deep wounds, and reclaim their power with purpose and passion. Through his work, Aaron champions healing, authentic self-expression, and a movement that stands united in support of men overcoming adversity, whether it's personal trauma, societal expectations, or the systems that seek to silence them. So everyone, get ready for a conversation that's heartfelt, unfiltered, and rooted in empowerment. This is the Deadbeat Chronicles with Aaron Ellis. Let's dive in. Aaron Ellis, I really appreciate you jumping on an episode with me. You and I have had a couple of great conversations here prior to warm up for this. So I'm just going to turn this mic right on over to you with just a little bit of an introduction here. We had the introduction at the beginning of the episode here, but talk to us a little bit about your parent alienation story, maybe even back in marriage years before you started having kids. Any kind of thoughts about those philosophies talking in the way to parenthood, and then it all went south. So let me welcome. Thank you very much for coming on.
I like that you said that because I've done a lot of personal work to figure out where my personal responsibility lied with all this, with the abuse and the parental alienation. And it's not about blame. I always like to share these when I'm being interviewed or talking. It says, this isn't about blame or a custody battle, really. It's about the kids, right? And it's about abuse of children. And it's really about integration and not injury anymore for me and going out there and helping people heal. So I'll start with my story and what happened with it, but I like that you talked about the past because there's a lot of past things that I've dug up that really shine light on why my life turned out the way it did, right?
Yeah.
So I it's really interesting too because we talked a little about my career. I've been a professional musician since I was 11 years old. I've always been out there speaking, helping men for the last 20 years with mental health and working on myself for 30 years. And then all of a sudden I'm sidelined for 10 years, technically. And in 2013, I met my ex-wife, my children's mother, and I had just signed another record deal and was filming a video and then quickly was isolated, and it was 10 years of domestic violence and coercive control and psychological abuse, and even got into sexual abuse in the end. And I literally lost every bit of myself over that period of time. And I've met a lot of men that similar things have happened to. Now, the funny thing is I've been working on new music. Like I think you sent me one song, but I have this one song that talks about how I didn't learn my lesson yet. And I divorced her in 2000. I left her in 2016, end of 2016. Divorce was finalized in the beginning of 18. And then I took her back a year later. So I didn't learn the lesson. And things were decent we had another child. So we had a daughter when we got divorced. Then we had our son in 2020. Things were decent for about a year, and then everything just cracked again. And progressed. It was worse abuse than it was the first time around. And it was just got to the point where I literally almost died, physically died, and had to leave to save my own life. And I think that's the hardest, one of the hardest things for me to handle is I had to walk away from my kids for a little while, or else I was going to die. There was no way around it. And that's still tough for me some days when I think about it because of all the fallout. Now, would the fallout have happened if I would have stayed? I probably wouldn't have lived through it, honestly. But I left November 3rd. All these dates are so significant now in my life too. November 3rd, 2020.
Seared into your memory. Yeah.
Yeah. And I isolated myself, which is common with men who are depressed and going through this, which they need community more than anything. But I've lived both sides of that now. And I isolated myself and tried to feel better. And the physical abuse stopped, of course, but the fists turned into parental alienation and legal abuse. And She filed up to 50 plus allegations against me with Department of Children and Families, which is Florida's version of CPS. And all of those were fully investigated, every case closed. There was never a judicial order saying I couldn't have my children, but I thought there was because she went out and told everybody that I wasn't allowed to see my kids. So from November all the way to March, I didn't even try to see my kids because I thought I was not allowed to see my kids. Then I finally found out that I was allowed to see my kids. There was never an order against it. I called DCF and ended up filing a formal complaint with them and having a meeting with literally the state representative for DCF, the local, the regional, the local, the center where I was, where I was under that lead and the caseworker. And they apologized. They cited things that they'd done wrong. They told me I'd never not been able to see my kids. They told me they thought I had been seeing my kids, which I didn't. I don't know if I believe that or not. But I immediately went to go get my kids. Then went to the sheriff, and they said go to their school, go anywhere, just go pick them up. So I went to the sheriff. This was March of 2024, and proceeded to have the sheriff do what's called a standby assurance of peace because they told me they couldn't do anything about it because it was a civil matter, which is actually not true. It's actually a penal code felony in every state. Custodial interference and all that kind of stuff is, but they don't treat it that way. The modus operandi, or whatever you call it, the way of doing it is the sheriffs are trained to say that they can't do anything, which is actually not true. But that's a different topic. So I literally went over and over and over again with the sheriff. They kept me out of the house and said, she's not going to let you see the kids. DCF says you're not allowed to. So I had all this literally documented. More lies and more coercive control, more basically the beauty in Florida, at least, psychological abuse is considered domestic violence as well. So I was logging all this stuff. Long story short, I got my kids back a year ago this month. And then this is what I want to share here is nothing to put down people who work and all that kind of stuff, but I was literally a 24-hour full-time dad from the day they were born until the day I left. I homeschooled them. I made them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They had desks in my office, right? So I'm not down on people who have to go away for the day and come back and only see their kids in the morning and night, but man, it literally almost killed me not seeing my children. And we're still healing from it. My son was 4 when I got back. He's 5 now, but it was like nothing ever changed. It was like I walked out of my office and we started playing again. He literally saw me across the soccer field and ran up and hugged me after a year, right? My daughter, on the other hand, wouldn't come near me. She would cry when I tried to talk to her, which was really painful because she was a complete daddy's girl. Like complete daddy's girl. Even when we got divorced originally, we had joint or shared custody, but she stayed with me 5-6 days a week, and with her mom once a week overnight. Usually she would want daddy, so her mom would bring her back, or I'd go back and pick her up. So it was heartbreaking, and I'm still working on that. I'll pause after this, but just last week, she started snuggling up to me again to watch movies and said she loved me back once and let me hug her twice. And that's the first physical contact we've had in any way, shape, or form in 2 years.
Well, that's wonderful.
So
And you,
progressing.
yeah, it's incredible. If people watching this don't realize just how deep that is and how much absolutely nothing else in the world matters when those moments happen, when you've been pining for it and grinding on it and losing sleep and having all kinds of hurtful, negative, low self-esteem thoughts about it, when those moments happen and those reconnections reoccur and they come back, it's undescribable but wonderful nevertheless, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the past thing. So I constantly have sought and taught personal responsibility in everything I do. I firmly know, and I say know, the difference between a belief and knowing. I know this. It's not something I just rehearse. It fails me at times. It's a knowing that once we take control and responsibility for everything in our life is the moment we can change anything. And I mean everything. And a lot of people don't get that because they're used to blaming and pointing outside of themselves. And so I came into this with that mindset or that understanding. So when I started to look at things, yes, I learned all the things about her and about like potential borderline personality, narcissistic personality, all that stuff. But what I found about myself was my mother has narcissistic personality disorder. So as a child, that first 3 years of my life, my neural pathways, the way my brain thought and viewed life and the truths that were basically embedded in me was that narcissistic abuse was love. And so every female relationship I had after that was repeating that pattern to a worse degree. Like it got worse and worse and more abuse and more abusive. So when I remembered that, because I say remembered because I taught neural pathway stuff and brain, taught about the brain many times with people with other issues in their life, it kind of dawned on me like, okay, it's not her fault, nor is it my fault. It's not about blaming her. It's not about blaming me. It's not about blaming my mother. It's about really understanding what was going on up here.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I draw this situation in my life? And I truly believe that everything happens for us. Nothing happens to us. We are never a victim. And that was a tough thing for me. I did 2 months or 3 months of domestic violence therapy. And they said, you're a victim. I'm like, no. And I stopped them and I realized I was victimized. But as soon as I understood that, meaning things happened to me that were out of my control or I didn't understand, I believe that people choose to be a victim. They choose to perpetuate that identity.
Yep.
I never held on to that. Did I feel like it at times? Yeah. Did I go through processing in my brain anger and stuff? Of course I did. But I did it openly, and I did it. I call it healing out loud. So, yeah, there's other aspects of it too, but I think personal responsibility is one of the main things that I really learned from all this and
I
how it
would
applies.
I would agree with you. Taking ownership, just coining a Jocko Willink book, taking extreme ownership of everything you do. I think it's great leadership for parents as well. Um,
Yeah.
Blaming is a generational problem. Would you agree?
100%.
To break that and really embrace taking personal responsibility. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you've taken the conversation kind of that way because so much of the show here is it wants to be proactive. It wants to talk about these proactive measures to have co-parenting and custody and parental alienation. Well, first of all, let me go backwards. We want to completely eliminate parental alienation, right? We want to certainly lessen custody issues because that's usually a divorce issue. And we want to improve co-parenting all the way around. So some of that is proactive, some of it's reactive, right? You and I both, but we're talking about your story right now. You're in a reactive situation. Things have already happened. And how do you heal from here? I don't think that you're able to do it if you're just in this state of blaming. Can you?
You're not at all. It's not possible.
Yep.
That identity perpetuates itself. It also draws to itself like perspectives. You bring more victims to yourself. You get more validation for how you're feeling. And vice versa, when you start to heal, when you start to take responsibility, you'll start to meet others and hear other stories of others doing that, which will reinforce it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Aaron, tell us a little bit about now, over the past couple of years, you've been vocal, wanting to just raise awareness about not just parent alienation, but also the domestic violence attachment to that in your case. So tell me a little bit about some of the groups that you're involved with, and I'm sure you'll want to mention Robert Garza somewhere in the mix there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we'll start there because that's a big piece of it, although all of it's tied together. And I consider the legal abuse domestic violence. I consider it can be called narcissistic abuse. The word narcissist is way overplayed right now, but there's a lot of people in these situations have narcissistic traits, you could say, at least. But yeah, Americans for Judicial Accountability is an organization. Robert Garza is the guy I mentioned, which I believe you need to meet him. We'll make that intro.
Would love
But
to, yes.
we're working on literally reforming the family law system and like a new movement in equality and human rights, really, when it comes down to it. Because it's not just about men, it's about men, women, children, grandparents. Everybody is affected by this system. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of corruption. I've met a lot of people who dealt with corruption and learned firsthand and heard things that just blew my mind that you can't make up, right? And we're making progress. And the objective is by the end of next year to have it literally across the country where for first and foremost, let's talk about some of the three main things we're doing is that all states embrace 50-50, period. Now, of course, nobody believes there should be 50-50 custody if there's an abuser. So we can take that out of the mix because that's usually people's argument. Well, what if there's abuse? We're not talking about abusers. We're talking about parents who are fit, who are willing, who are not having problems with abuse. There's never been abuse, proven abuse. Now, one of the things that happens in these cases is false abuse. Like 85% of CPS cases are false.
And I wouldn't doubt that a bit.
That's crazy, you know?
Yeah.
It's called the silver bullet method. It's literally taught by attorneys to women primarily to go out, make false allegations, do it by proxy, which means you're not doing it yourself. You're getting a friend to call in, right? Or you're doing it anonymously. So 50-50 custody for one thing. Florida embraced that last August. So their law, their standard is equal shared parenting, custody and time sharing. There's no custodial parent anymore in Florida. Okay. So it's literally equal decision making, unless there's abuse. We don't need to talk about that one. I think that should be everywhere in the country, everywhere in the world, technically. Second, Robert has been writing laws, literally writing these laws. So one of them is called time taken, time back. If you've been alienated, kids kept from you, false allegations, all that stuff. When you get your kids back, you get that time back. So if I would have enforced this in my case, I didn't, because I didn't want to alienate my kids from their mother. I do get them every single day now, so I'm getting more than a 50-50 arrangement technically, but I could have said I didn't have my kids for 404 days. The way the law is written is I would get them for 404 days without her getting them, which to me doesn't make sense because then she becomes alienated.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we worked it out where I get them every single day. I have them every day. It's not, we worked it out, but she still gets to see him and we're working it out. Like she'll be like, tomorrow, I'll probably say, hey, you want to take the kids for the morning because I have a doctor's appointment. You know what I mean? I'm trying to work with her, right? The other one is called the 3-strike law. So like I was saying, in every single state, which we can share this with people, the problem is, well, let me come back to that. It's literally a state jail felony to keep the kids from another parent, period. In every single state. It's written that way in the law. But again, the sheriffs don't do anything. The police don't do anything. So the way this law has been written, and it's now getting embraced by different states, is that there's 3 strikes. The first time they alienate the parent, keep the kids away, it's $500 fine. Second time, $500 fine. Third time, mandatory jail. So it creates this dynamic where people don't want to make the false allegations anymore. They don't want to like keep the kids away because the sheriffs don't have to say, sorry, we can't do anything. The parent doesn't have to wait for 6 months to a year for a hearing. The sheriff can just go over and literally fine the person $500 for doing it. So that's been picked up in a few states already now too. There's a lot of other laws that we're working on, like bringing cameras back in the courtrooms, and justice delayed is justice denied. Some cases aren't ruled on for months. So we're saying it has to be ruled on within a certain period of time because the judges forget and stuff. So, but that's been extremely powerful to see the change. And there's a lot of judges, like you mentioned, talking to some judges. There's a lot of judges that are speaking up now too and starting to educate themselves. Younger ones. I'm not saying the old ones are stuck in their ways, but some of them are stuck in their ways.
Yeah. It's all over the board.
Yeah.
And it really is.
I myself, which were partnered with Americans for Judicial Accountability, started an organization called the Empower Men Movement, which is helping other men who've gone through intimate partner violence, which is domestic violence in an intimate relationship, as well as narcissistic abuse and the whole family law journey. So that's the other organization I'm primarily working with.
And I think what you're talking about, they're great deterrents. Like you said, do you have the right to keep your kids for 400 days? Well, sure you do, but does that throw you right into the hypocritical arena? Of course it does. So, I mean, there's logic behind it, and I agree with what you say about the 50-50. I think it should be the standard and the guideline. Is there variance from it? Yes. What I can even think of a voluntary situation where husband and wife divorce, maybe the husband and or the wife is in a little bit of a better financial position, or maybe there's a little more stability in one residence over the other because maybe one parent is still maybe setting up shop, new residence, and hasn't quite settled on the somewhat permanent residence yet. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios. I think it's about giving the power to the people, not the courts.
Right, 100%.
And
It should be parents deciding this, not the courts.
Yeah, it really is. And when the parents can't agree, because oftentimes they can't in these custody situations, I believe that the so-called expert mediators just simply don't have enough time. You go in for a meeting, one meeting, maybe two, and these people are trying to determine these things. I think we should have again, unless there's abuse, I do think we should have a longer drawn out pre-divorce, pre-dissolution of marriage time period. I'm open to other experts kind of trying to define that and set that, put that in place. But it's the wild, wild west, isn't it? It's the wild, wild west from the beginning when the relationships get volatile, and instead of seeking good counseling, they're running right to family law. And in defense of family law, they're not necessarily geared up for mental health issues. Certainly not parental alienation on that deeply manipulative, deeply dishonest level. Some people, as you said, it's not all women, is it? It's just, let's just call it humans. Both guys and gals, they get really upset, and some people are very convincing. They are very, very convincing. I'm not one of those people. I'm not. I can tend to try to stick to simple facts and simple baseline morals, and I don't do too well with what I would call an artist. I used to use the term an artist before I started learning terms like sociopath, functioning sociopath, narcissist. You mentioned earlier that those terms get thrown out a lot these days. I would agree with you. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a degree in any kind of mental health arena. I probably throw that word around a lot based on some of the ways that some of my experiences in the past, right? But we're not going to get anywhere. Your program, this show, any conversations, I don't think they're going to get anywhere by simply attacking the system, right?
That's the main thing. Like one of the things I learned this years ago, is that people will listen when you bring them a solution. You can share the problem as long as you have a solution. If you're just coming to share the problem, especially in the legal, like in the family law, or with attorneys, or with the police department, if you're just going to go gripe about and complain, you're going to be labeled as a complainer. But
yeah,
if you go in there with here's the problem, here's my solution, they'll listen to you, because they're usually thinking about trying to figure it out on their own. They want solutions for them. I believe most of them do.
Yeah, I definitely do. I'm very much looking forward to my some of the conversations in the local Las Vegas area. Some of our audience, we're located, here in the Las Vegas area. You're in Florida. You're in the Panhandle there. You're almost halfway across the Gulf of America, I guess it's called now, and and everything. So what do you have on the horizon next for the Empower Men movement?
So, provided I can get my health together, which we haven't talked about, I have a new album coming out, a book coming out, a gala in May scheduled for the Empower Men movement to raise funds and also launch a music tour, or actually a community building tour. It's not just going to be music events, it's going to be speaking and music at these events. And then I plan on touring through the rest of the year. So, and like I said, we want to do this like 1 to 2 day events in each community we go into. It'll be a combination of speakers and musicians. So we'll have music and the speaking. I had this actually planned out, a similar kind of tour planned out before COVID started. COVID hit, so we couldn't do it. So
yeah.
now I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it around the empowerment movement and helping men heal out loud.
Good. And then what you got going with Robert Garza?
So that's the Americans for Judicial Accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So literally he's being asked to speak in every state now, like everywhere. So when you look into what he's doing and how loud he's getting about it, literally he'll go to any state. He'll literally fly out there and help you. But I'm gonna start when I have the time. I'm gonna start court watching as well and going into these cases and introducing myself. And we're finding that when somebody from the Americans for Judicial Accountability is in the courtroom, the judges act different, and you let them know because we're literally keeping them accountable. So he'll court watch too, but he's written the law for every single state, these laws, and he's going in and helping. And one of the things that we've talked about doing with my celebrity connections in the entertainment industry, as well as like professional sports, which is technically entertainment industry, is when I'm in these different cities, he'll come out, meet us, we'll find a celebrity in that town, and we'll walk into the legislature with them. And a lot of times it helps. They'll come in and they want to meet this person anyway.
Yeah.
So it helps to get through the door and get the conversation going.
That's good momentum. No, I'm excited to speak with him as well. So yeah, somewhere down the road that'll happen. And your music tours are this is running all over the country. I know we talked a little bit about some shows in the Anaheim, Southern California area.
Yeah. So the first show that's tentatively scheduled is in Hollywood with the Hollywood Vampires, which is Johnny Depp's band. So Johnny Depp is one of the most known people for intimate partner violence, and he had a case that was heavily televised.
Oh yeah.
That's the band with Alice Cooper and Joe Perry from Aerosmith. So that's in May, and then it'll be a national tour, and then we're talking about overseas next year. Or I usually, like in the past, I've gone to Australia and stuff in the winter because it's summer there, and Santa's in board shorts.
Right.
Christmas time over there. So yeah, it's literally I see this as a global movement, but yeah, we're starting with the U.S. Starting in May.
Yeah, I would say the greatest international connection that I've seen to this is in the UK. There's quite a bit of different movements on this in the UK.
Yeah.
I would gather that their system of family courts is a little bit different. I'm trying to gather some of those unique nuances and differences, but either way, I think it stems from the same thing, and it's all society based before it ever hits the courts. I see proactive resolutions being within us, not us being the citizens, not our government. And especially in the family arena. When I think about a role model for any of my kids, any of my friends' kids, my friends, family, I'm not looking to a politician. I think a lot of people are these days. Not looking to an entertainer. Every once in a while, you do align with a politician or an entertainer that says some things that are, again, aligned with your views. But there's an awful lot of anti-structure going on. There's a lot of let's bolster up the supposed disenfranchised, and we don't want to quote unquote dehumanize all these little groups. My view is that a group that we have here in America are our families. And I don't believe there's another entity that is more important than the American family. So all of these different directions taking focus away from that continually, decade after decade after decade. I might guess that you and I are fairly close in age. I probably got you beat by maybe 15 or 16 years here. But it's got to be the Zoom. It's the Zoom frame. Mine just makes me look older. I don't know what it is, Aaron, but I can't even stay on my chair for God's sakes. But we didn't have these divisive conversations in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and on. It has progressed. It's getting worse. It's getting worse starting with technologies, then rolling into the internet, then rolling into social media. And our society, if not the global society, keeping up with these technologies. And, we're giving our 4.5-year-olds these devices right here to raise themselves to some degree. And I think that it's a big conversation. I think it's a big conversation that needs to happen with all of these details in our lifestyles before people get into relationships and then on into marriage and then on into creating and raising families, then not being prepared when the tough times hit, whether they're family, financial, societal. We could go on forever, right? The tough times are going to hit. It's not that life's going to be glorious and someone's just going to get lucky. It doesn't happen. Even the supposed lucky people in some people's view, they've got it tough too from time to time. We all do. We're human, right? I think we ought to talk about those vulnerabilities to give our future generations more strength than I think some parts of our society are showing these days.
And I think going to the personal responsibility aspect, us as parents, we have to heal ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to start being proactive because our kids learn by what they see us doing. And we literally are setting them up for generational trauma and therapy in the future, literally, if we're not working on ourselves.
Yep.
And, what we say, what we do, and what we think, it has to all be sharing the same message to be in integrity because they watch that. We can, and it's the whole theory of like your kids don't listen to what you say, they listen to what you do. It's true. And I've talked to so many people and I let them vent and I let them open up to it. And don't get me wrong, I've been there. I lost days and weeks binging Netflix when I first left my ex. But there comes a time where you have to take the time to work on yourself. And I think that was the hardest thing that people said to me when I was going through this, like, get yourself healthy. I'm like, I was pissed when they would say that. I'm like, how can you tell me that? Like, I can't even breathe. I can't even get out of bed, And when I finally did that, that made a huge difference, but it's so hard to do. And I really believe that's because, honestly, whether you're a man or a woman in this situation, you need community. Isolation, you can't do it on your own. Yet it's calm. Like I isolated myself completely, right?
Yeah.
I literally was afraid to leave my house. I would have panic attacks from all the trauma and the complex PTSD from this. So I get it, but I also faced it. And I've met people who've never faced it, who are 10 years, 20 years later, and they're still out there saying that it's somebody else's fault and it's the system's fault and it's the court's fault and it's their parents' fault. Anybody but themselves. The solutions and the problems are right here.
I think it's the only place the solution is. I mean, I agree with what you say about community and assistance and support and love, commune, 100%. But even with all that support, if any of us individually are not willing to be anything from teachable to internalize to having the desire to want to step past aggressions and resentments and hurt hard feelings, we all have them. But in an parent alienation, estranged scenario, when those relationships have the opportunity to come back, one, are all parties still going to be bitter when that opportunity for communication continues? And maybe would the opportunity to reconcile even exist if one side is looking at the other side that just keeps blaming and blaming and blaming, And I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to tell a lot of stories on the show here that are very hard, unfair, unfortunate, and they're going to be polarizing and get some real opinions. But the resolutions, I think, are going to rest all in the same place. And that is that self-improvement. It's kind of an interesting way to look at it. It's like, okay, you got in a car wreck, you got rear-ended. Is it your fault? No. But the moment you got hit, is it your responsibility? Are you a part of the matter here? Is it your responsibility to address and do the best you can to handle it? And in these situations where parents are pushed to rejection, isolation, again, alienation, the emotions around that can have people acting in ways that they never have before.
It's hard. It really is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from 2 decades of personal development and really understanding that life happens for me, not to me. And I still had trouble.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've been told I got through it faster, but it's just I don't I don't compare myself to anybody or compare anybody to myself, right? When somebody tells me their problems, I'm not like, well, you think that's bad. I never have done that to them. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Mhm.
big.
Oh, check this out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of so. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I've always thought that was funny when people said that. Like, it doesn't make me feel any better, but it's tough. It really is tough. But that's probably one of the main things is we live in a society that blames, that teaches blame, that teaches nothing is
Mhm.
your fault,
Mhm.
and
True.
also that, like, the solutions are outside of you, which is not true. It's just not true. And
Mhm.
I think, and we live in a society that treats symptoms, not the root problems. And we're talking about the root problems where most people are addressing the symptoms.
A house of cards, if you will. They're treating that top floor on the house of cards, and
Yeah.
it's a lot of things I think are starting to crumble and change. Robert, in some of his dialogue, Robert Garza mentions that history will show that this is a bout of civil rights is truly what this is, and that we will look at it as a society in our future as something that was a dark spot on America, and we'll always strive to improve from. I,
Absolutely.
I really do believe that these conversations are the start of this. I have been very encouraged and surprised, maybe, that there are so many entities out there taking on this conversation. Some of us taking on a greater challenge. I would say that so far, Robert Garza seems like he's taken on Goliath. He's David and Goliathing the heck out of this situation, you know. Um, so I'm excited for your tour and that awareness. I would love to, definitely eh, keep promoting that. So definitely keep us posted on that. You mentioned something that I just learned about literally last week. I had never heard about this before. I think a lot of us, especially in today's day and age, with a lot of our military friends raising up awareness of PTSD, I had never heard of CPTSD, and I understand it pretty well now. I think the best way I can describe it is PTSD is something that happens in a moment or a set of moments where CPTSD is strung out over a very long period of time.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit of, if you can, what is your view on that, on CPTSD? And then also, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about some recovery that you're going through from some of the abuse.
I think that's a very important topic because I met a lot of men who have physical problems that they haven't necessarily tied yet to the trauma. And all of mine has been tied by professionals now. So you're right. Complex CPTSD is over a long period of time. So for me, it's technically still going on. I'll start most recent issue. I had a stroke in August, and had to go to the hospital and stuff. And she tried to say that it was a mental breakdown, not a physical problem, and tried to file an ex parte motion to remove my father's rights. Now, the judge denied it, but then her attorney went and filed another motion to say I need a psychological evaluation, which we go to court for on January 5th. So, what I did, because I'm pro se now, I had an attorney. I've spent more money than I want to share because it should have gone to my kids, but I've learned so much. So I'm like, I don't need an attorney. It doesn't make any sense to me anymore.
Mhm.
And I wish I would have done it from the beginning. But anyway, I've filed sanctions against her attorney now for legal abuse, and I filed with the Bar Association. And I already made her first attorney drop her and it's obvious that he hasn't read the records because I've showed her lying for 2 years.
Mhm.
And even her first attorney says that she lied to her and that's why she dropped her. So I got a little bit of advice on it, but I did all on my own to where I've filed sanctions against her attorney now for these court hearings. But anyway, so the way it was explained to me was that if you've heard, obviously, when you're in a traumatic situation, you go into fight or flight. It's actually
Mhm.
fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, which is the full term. So you want to fight, you want to run, you freeze, or you cower, right? So I was told that I was in that for several years. to where my nervous system, my central nervous system, was in fight or flight for several years, and my body was running on adrenaline. So as soon as my body started to regulate again, my central nervous system started to regulate when I got away from her. I was going through therapy, working on myself. All of a sudden, all these physical problems came. I had a heart attack. I have final stage kidney failure. I'm seeking a kidney. Unless I get that done, I'm not going to be able to do a tour. And I had the stroke in August. So what the doctor said, which I think is kind of funny, because here I am feeling better mentally and emotionally, and all of a sudden my body says, "See ya," it shuts down because I had been running off adrenaline. So again, when my central nervous system regulated again, all of a sudden all these issues, health issues that were kept at bay, came flooding forward, and my body
Right.
shut.
Yeah.
So I'm dealing with that now. I'm dealing with all the health issues. Um, we're getting ready to launch a campaign for a kidney for me. Because if I don't get that, I'm even struggling to breathe right now. But if I
Mhm.
get a kidney, I can't go on tour. I can't do that stuff. So I laugh at it now because, like I was saying, I finally started to feel better, and then my body just shut down. And like I said, through my nephrologist, my regular doctor, psychiatrist, the experts on NPD, all that kind of stuff, it's literally been tied directly to the trauma and the abuse. And because of that, what it did, if you want to put it in medical terms, I had extended hypertension for years. My blood pressure was super high, caused the kidney failure, caused the stroke, caused the heart attack. The hypertension and the high blood pressure was from the trauma. So a lot of people don't realize, they're like, I met my daughter. I went up and picked up my daughter from a friend's house the other day, and her dad was like, "Oh, I had dialysis." I'm like, "You're in dialysis?" I go to dialysis because of my kidneys. And
Right.
he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "My kidneys shut down. I'm going through divorce and stuff." And I told him, like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, that's why. You're stressed." He's like, "Why'd your kidney shut down?" It's like, "Oh, hypertension. My blood pressure was too high." They don't realize that. Now, back to personal responsibility, I'd done 20 years of personal development, and I still lost myself in this relationship. I still completely allowed, I say allowed, because on some level I believe I did allow it, but I allowed myself to be abused,
Yeah.
right? But when people don't realize that all those physical problems are like, I remember studying, this is a total different rabbit hole, but when I owned some gyms and stuff, and I really got in health and fitness for, I don't know, a decade ago. And I remember, like, when you look back in history in the 80s or so, 70s, 80s, there was nothing called like lifestyle diseases. Now, depending on who you talk to, 90 something percent of all the issues that people have are considered a lifestyle disease, which means something in their lifestyle caused it.
A
So it's not a
chemical
separation.
imbalance, right? The
Yeah,
chemical imbalance over a long period of time is
yeah.
messing with the biological systems in the body, right? You talk about personal responsibility, right? I definitely agree with that. I'm not sure exactly where I stand on what I'm about to bring up now, just because I'm not an expert on it. But I have had thoughts and I have heard other opinions, just like you're sharing here, that when we are focusing on something and we're concentrating on things so much, and when they're negative, there are really, really negative byproducts. Some people they don't dwell as negatively as others. Some people, it's just their makeup. Some people, as we all know, are not as attached to their kids. Just as an example, they're not as attached to their kids. They can kind of go off and do things in life, and they don't operate with that same hook of sorts that I would certainly like to believe that you and I are talking about. The desire to be dads, the desire to be close, the desire to reconcile relationships that are estranged. And there's so many different stories, right? So many different stories. I would say that there's tons of similarities, but they're all different because you've got people, and every single person that I know processes just a little bit differently. It's just a slight bit of difference of processing opinions, feelings, experiences that are going to formulate someone's thought processes. So
Right.
I I would be of the opinion that a long time stressful situation based on something that someone desires so deeply and that's been taken from them, or they've been rejected, or failed on their own, whatever it may be. Psychological problems, I think, are, I'm becoming much, much more aware of them and how much they can affect the body. You know, especially as we age, we're not, 25, 30 years old, 20 years old, that's seeming invincible anymore, right? As the 25-year-old over there raises his hand, whoop whoop, right here. And then and we kind of touched on again that CPTSD, that was what kind of started this part of the conversation, and then rolling into your own personal stuff. So you go to dialysis every other day, a few times a week.
4 days a week for about
4 days
6
a week.
hours. Yeah, it takes me about 6 hours for the drive, and then I sit for 4.5 hours, and then drive back.
Got you.
And it literally, then I'm wiped out. I'm literally wiped out. I'm technically considered disabled now because of it. Although I'm not really fully embracing that, as far as like I'm not making myself feel disabled as much as I can, and I really believe there's going to be a solution for me. I believe there's way more for me to do in this life than die, right? So
At least right now.
yeah.
At least right now, right? No, you and I didn't touch on this in our previous conversations too much at all, but going through any of these experiences, do you reach into any specific spirituality, a certain religion, Christianity, or a Stoicism, or a philosophy, or another religion of any kind? Is there something that you reach out to for a lot of balance there also?
So that's a longer story than just a quick answer. I was brought up non-denominational Christian, which I think is, I laugh at now because it's a denomination. Non-denominational is a denomination. But
Right.
anyway,
Right.
but about 16 years old, I just started studying everything. And I've literally studied every religion I could find, every school of thought you could say that I could look into, and found a common thread in all of them. And I think I am more of I approach everything in life, including religion, holistically. And I believe there's obviously something else out there, but I believe we're all connected. We're all drops of the same ocean, or the entire ocean in one drop when it comes down to it. So I don't know if that's really considered spiritual, or I don't consider myself religious really, but I do commune with something greater than myself, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Something higher.
Yeah.
A I'll dive into something a little specific here. I think when it comes to religion, there's a lot of folks that will attach creation, and that creation has to be kind of a hardline opinion to claim one religion or the other. I think the common threads that you're talking about there in all of those philosophies and religions are anything from how we treat ourselves, how we treat our families, how we treat others, how we invite others that are not of our kind, be it race, religion, nationality, language. That's a big one, right? Language. Education. Talking about the future. How do guys like you and I do our best to try to ensure that our future generations and future families don't end up seeing and experiencing the things that you have, the story that you're telling here? How do we combat the lack of that language getting to our kids through school districts, entertainment? How do we promote families from, how do we promote more and more families to embrace traditional family values? And then what's my version of traditional family values, and what's my neighbor's version of traditional family values? And why in God's name are we so polarized? Why are we so polarized at the family level? Why are we so polarized at the political level? Why are we so polarized with our kids? Why are so many entities coming in at our kids?
Wow. That's multiple questions in one question, but
Hold on, I got more.
I'll go to where I originally go. I honestly believe or know that our relationship with ourselves dictates our relationship with everyone and everything else. Literally. If we're struggling with money, there's something in us that we're struggling with. If we're struggling with freedom, with peace, with ease, with work, with anything, we're literally struggling within ourselves. And we got to work on ourselves. And when you understand that everything and everyone is connected, when you work on yourself, you're working on everybody. When you're working on you, you're working on the whole. And going back to what I said earlier, your kids are going to see what you do, and they're going to listen to that, not what you say. And I live by the definition of integrity is when what we say and what we do and what we think is saying the same message to the world. If we're saying one thing, doing something different, people are going to listen to what we do, right? There's got to be that congruency there. Or people will just not like you, they'll attack you, just like they normally do. So it comes down to meeting others where they're at and accepting them, which comes down to meeting ourselves where we're at and accepting ourselves. If we can't do it here, we can't do it out here.
Yeah.
I am so non-judgmental. I just have no judgment in me. I don't see things as good, bad, right, or wrong. I never have. So I can sit down with anybody and they're like, I have funny stories about this where like I'll just listen to them they're like you don't get offended by anything, do you, Aaron? I'm like, no, I've never been offended or embarrassed in my life because I just don't have that in I'm autistic, so that's part of the reason why. My brain works differently. I hear everything literally, so I don't put the story on it. Like most people don't have a problem with reality. They think they do, but they have a problem with the story they tell about reality. It's not what is, it's the story they tell about what is. And if they could just live in the moment in what is happening now, there's no problems in the moment in now. There's only
Good
problems in
point.
the story that we tell, which
Yeah.
is from
Great.
our past and projection into the future.
The greatest productivity is in any given moment. Yep.
Yeah.
Is it not? I didn't make that up.
Comes down to all
I can't take credit for that.
When it comes down to all the polarization, I think we might have talked about this earlier, but this is the way my brain functions. Okay. We talked about pizza, I think, when we first talked to each other. Like, do you like pineapple on pizza?
Yep. I'm that guy.
Okay, so you're that guy. Do you like olives on pizza?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you like? Let me think. I got to think of something. Is there anything you don't like on pizza?
I wouldn't go anchovies. I wouldn't go anchovies or mushrooms. Yeah, I'd skip those two.
Oh, so no mushrooms. So I don't like mushrooms either. But let's say I did like mushrooms. We could still share dinner together. We might even be able to split a pizza. I might be like, we might want the mushrooms to touch that one slice, but we're not going to go to I'm not going to go, you know what? I met this guy, Jeff. Forget it. We don't align. He doesn't align with my truth. You know what I mean? So I can't be around him because we have a different preference in food.
Yeah.
There's no difference when it comes to religion or politics or anything else. It's like pineapple on pizza. You like it or you don't, but you don't shun someone or hate them or try to kill them, because we can look through history, politics and religion is, prompted so many wars. It's like, I see everything the same way as pineapple on pizza. It's just a preference. It's a preference, not a judgment. Well, we're taught from a very young age to judge. We're taught what's called comparison, which is a fancy way to say judge.
Mm-hmm.
It's comparing yourself to other students in school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you learn to judge what's good, bad, right, or wrong. And I'm not saying there isn't in the moment good or bad, right, wrong choices, but in the whole grand scheme of things, there isn't. It just isn't there. And when people have challenged that, I'm like, okay, give me something that has happened bad in your life. They'll tell me. Now, might have been a day later, a month later, a week later, a year later, 10 years later, they're thankful for that situation now. And they can see why it happened for them. But in the moment or for decades later, they hated it and made it wrong and had to complain about it, right? So it was bad and wrong. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, when you realize everything comes back together, it's not. And we're taught to analyze, tear apart, but we're not taught to synthesize and bring things back together. And that's one of our biggest problems.
Yeah.
So whether it's there's a term which, it's not the yoga term, whatever. It's not a religious term, but the term namaste. It literally means the soul in me or the spirit in me honors the soul in you. I meet you where we're both the same. So it's prior to religious beliefs, prior to political beliefs, prior to gender, prior to our age, prior to anything, our demographics, or whether we like pineapple or mushrooms. Right? And if we can live from that space, then there's none of these problems we've had. but we get conditioned and the programs run and the patterns run our lives rather than us.
And the social or technological trends that may be going on at any given time, and the tech trends that seem to be with us forever now, right? You know, when we think to 1950, 1960, 1970s, kids growing up with toys and learning and exposure compared to now, technology is that cyborg, if you will, that is always available to disconnect humanity, to disconnect parents from their kids, husbands from their wives. We could go on, you know, all day long. I definitely like you know what you're saying. In the links below, I'm definitely going to list all kinds of things from Empower Men movement. I would also like to talk about the movie Elf. Apparently, is right up here. I'd like to also. I'd like to also. You were talking about a campaign for kidney replacement, for kidney donation. Please send me whatever you have on that. I would like to get that out to our audience. Brand new show by the time that this episode comes out, but we're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And Aaron, I got to tell you, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot more.
Oh, I'm 100%.
You know, I really appreciate the conversations we've had. I appreciate the journey that you've had and that you're sharing out there, as like we were talking the other day, as anything from guidance to cautionary tale. I don't think we have a problem disrobing and becoming vulnerable and surrendering. I don't know how many in our audience they think of the word surrender as I give up, I've failed, I've given up.
Yeah, I think it's resignation. That's not what it is.
And that's a Western technology value, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, civilizations. Eastern civilization, you know, theories are more based around surrendering is to open up and learn. And I heard that a few years back. I really like that. I really do. So we're not going to get anywhere by not learning, not growing. I heard also someone say, and right when I say this, I hope a bunch of people in the comments type in exactly who was quoted as saying this, but something about you're not growing unless you are reading books and meeting new people. And I probably brutalized that actual quote, but it's something close to that. If you're not expanding your mind with relationships and literature, you're just not growing. You know, are you on any books right now?
I am not, actually. I'm not on any books right now. It's funny. I had a couple that I was reading last year that was on like parental alienation and intimate partner violence and stuff like that, just to educate myself. But I don't have any current book in my hand.
If if I was going to throw something out there, I'm currently on the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Pretty popular author. So if anyone's hasn't gotten into that book, I'm about 3/4 of the way through it right now on audio. I'm an audio guy. I tend to fall asleep when I read. It's pretty quickly, so audio is it. But well, Aaron, man, again, good show. I'd like to kind of give the mic back to you for any final thoughts here, and we'll get to the editing process and get this on out to as many people as we can.
Cool. I think if I had any final thoughts to say, it's just that, and I know I would, like I said, this ticked me off when people said it to me, but work on yourself. You got to work on yourself. Find someone to talk to that you can trust. Find community to lean into. Like with the Empower Men movement, we'll host calls where people don't have to even have their camera on. They don't have to talk. Just showing up helps them. And it starts to heal them just being in the energy of other people who are being proactive about what they're doing. And, I'll let people gripe and let them complain and let them vent. There's space for that. And then we get to work, and realize that what's the word I'm looking for? Your absence or being prevented from seeing your children doesn't break the bond. I learned that. I've studied and understand energy so well from being a musician and radio waves, stuff like that. Your children can feel your presence even when you're not with them. But if you completely disassociate, they'll feel that too.
Yeah.
And that's hard for people to grasp because they are so used to what I see is what I believe. But ultimately, that's not how life really works. It's actually believing is seeing, not seeing is believing.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it now with my kids, like, because I stayed as present as I could. You know what I mean? Even though I couldn't see them, they knew what was going on. They knew I came over there every week with a sheriff. You know, even though people said that I abandoned my family, you know, I had to listen to that kind of stuff. I didn't. So
Yeah.
stand in your truth and don't worry about what other people say, and put your energy into yourself rather than defending yourself, defending your false self, I would say. But community, find community.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we're gonna put some community links, you know, in the comments below. Definitely stuff with you, and yeah, we're gonna keep everyone here, our audience, posted on your journey, and I'm sure we'll talk again. And I'll look forward to some good comments, folks watching the show here. If you've got any comments or things you want to relate, questions you want to ask, don't hesitate. You can reach out to the show here. Aaron is also reachable. So again, Aaron, I really appreciate you coming on, and I think we'll sign off. Have a good weekend, Aaron. Thank you so much, brother. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
And that wraps up today's episode of the Deadbeat Chronicles, featuring Aaron Ellis and the Empower Men movement. Because strong men don't disappear, they show up, even when life, court dates, and group texts try to break them. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button like it owes you child support. Like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it but won't admit it. And listen, we don't just talk at you, we talk with you. Tell us what you want to see next. Topics, guests, hot takes, hard truths, or the stuff nobody else is willing to say out loud. We appreciate you showing up. We appreciate you staying engaged. And we'll see you right back here for the next episode of the Deadbeat Chronicles, where life lessons are learned, usually the hard way. See you soon.